The sky was dark. Clouds moved slowly, covering the stars. A cold wind passed through the narrow streets of a poor area. Somewhere between broken buildings and muddy roads stood an old orphanage. From outside it looked quiet, almost peaceful. But inside it was different. Behind the closed doors, pain lived. Sadness filled the air, and deep inside one of the small rooms, a 6-year-old boy named Arham sat on the floor. His face was pale. His eyes were tired. His arms had bruises. He held his stomach with small hands, trying to stop the pain from the beating he received. "Just an hour ago, all he had done was ask for a little food. I'm hungry," he had whispered. The caretaker, a tall and angry man, shouted, "You don't get to eat if you complain." Then the beating started. Arham didn't scream. He had learned not to. He only cried quietly. His tears made small dark spots on the dusty floor. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. There were 20 other children in the orphanage. Most of them were older than Arham. All of them were scared. They were beaten, shouted at, and made to clean the floors every day. Food was given once, just a little rice and water. No one from the outside ever came. There were no cameras, no visits, no love, just fear. The children didn't know what happiness felt like anymore. That night, Arham was asked to sweep the front yard. He held the broom with his tiny hands and moved slowly. His body ached with every step. The cold wind touched his skin, but he didn't feel it anymore. He was used to the cold. He was used to pain. Then, something strange happened as he swept. Near the broken front gate, he saw someone standing far away. A man in a dark suit. He wasn't moving. Just standing there, watching the building. Arham stopped sweeping. His small eyes stared at the man. For a moment he felt scared, but then something inside him felt warm. The man's face didn't look angry. It looked sad. Arham and the man looked at each other from a distance. The boy didn't speak, but in his heart he whispered, "Please help us." The man tilted his head slightly as if he understood that silent call, and then he started walking. Step by step, the stranger walked toward the gate. His shoes touched the muddy ground, but his eyes didn't move away from the building. From Arham, he came closer and closer. Arham took a step back. No adult had ever come to help before. Was this man real? Was he dangerous? Or was he someone different? The front door of the orphanage opened loudly. The caretaker, Mr. Nadim, came out. He looked at the man walking toward them and forced a fake smile. "Yes, can I help you?" The man stopped at the gate. He looked at Arham again, then back at the caretaker. "My name is Hyder," he said, calmly. "I was passing by. I saw your sign. Orphanage?" Mr. Nadim nodded. "Yes, we care for lost children here." Hyder looked around. He noticed the broken windows, the dirty walls, and most of all, the fear in Arham's eyes. "May I come in?" Hyder asked. Mr. Nadim paused. His smile didn't change, but his eyes grew sharp. "It's late, sir. The children are sleeping." Hyder didn't argue. He looked down at Arham. "Again, what's your name, little one?" he asked kindly. Arham opened his mouth but said nothing. He looked at the caretaker nervously. "He's shy," Mr. Nadim said quickly. "Doesn't talk much." But Hyder saw the truth in the boy's eyes. They were full of pain, and something else. Something still alive. Hope. "Maybe I'll come tomorrow," Hyder said, still watching the boy. "You can," the caretaker replied with a stiff smile. "But we're very busy." Hyder gave a small nod. Then he turned and walked away. Arham stood still at the gate, watching the man until he disappeared into the night. For the first time in a long time, his heart beat a little faster. Someone looked at me like I mattered. He didn't know who the man was. He didn't know what would happen next. But deep inside, he felt something he had almost forgotten. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, someone was coming to save them. The next morning, the children woke up early. They were tired, but they had no choice. It was cleaning day again. Some children were told to wash the floors, others were sent to the kitchen. Aram was given a small cloth and told to clean the hallway windows. His body still hurt from the beating last night, but in his heart, something had changed. He kept thinking about the man in the suit. Who was he? Why did he care? Would he come? Back every few minutes, Aram would sneak a look through the dirty windows toward the main gate. His small hands moved slowly as he cleaned, but his eyes stayed sharp. He was waiting. By noon, Mr. Nadim became nervous. He remembered the man from night, Hyder. He didn't like visitors, especially strangers asking questions. Mr. Nadim called his staff and warned them. If that man comes again, don't let him inside. Say the children are sick, say anything, just stop him. But Aram heard them. He was hiding behind the kitchen door. He held his breath and listened. The caretaker was scared. That gave Aram hope. Hours passed. The sky turned orange. Evening came. Then, just before sunset, a black car stopped outside the orphanage. It was him. Hyder stepped out slowly. This time, he held a small bag in his hand. He walked with calm steps, his eyes scanning the building again. Aram was already at the gate. He stood there quietly, not saying a word, but his heart was beating fast. Hyder smiled gently. "You're still here," he said. The boy nodded. Before he could say anything more, Mr. Nadim rushed out of the door. "Sir, I told you yesterday, and we're very busy." Hyder stayed calm. "I brought some gifts for the children. May I give them?" Mr. Nadim frowned. "They're sick, all of them. Cough and fever." Hyder raised one eyebrow. "All of them? At once?" "Yes," the man lied quickly. "Must be the weather." Hyder looked down at Aram. The boy didn't look sick. He looked afraid. "Then give them this," Hyder said, handing the bag to Mr. Nadim. "Clothes, chocolates, notebooks." Mr. Nadim didn't want to take it, but he couldn't refuse in front of the boy. He snatched the bag quickly. "Thank you. We'll give them later." Hyder didn't move. He looked at Aram again. "Can I talk to him for just a minute?" The caretaker laughed nervously. "He doesn't speak, useless boy, dumb since birth." Hyder slowly knelt down to Aram's level. "What's your name?" he asked softly. Aram looked up into the man's kind eyes. He wanted to answer. He wanted to speak. But he remembered the rules. No talking to strangers, no telling what happens inside, or you get punished. Hyder gently smiled. "It's okay. You don't have to say anything." Then he stood up and gave Mr. Nadim one last look. "I'll be back." Mr. Nadim nodded quickly. Yes, of course." Hyder walked back to his car. But this time he didn't drive away. He sat inside the car and waited, watching. Inside the orphanage, things were not quiet anymore. Mr. Nadim shouted at the staff. "Why didn't anyone tell me that man was coming again?" He grabbed the gift bag and threw it in a corner. "We don't need his charity." The children stared quietly. No one moved. No one spoke. Aram stood near the window and looked outside. Saw Hyder's car still there. He was still watching. He didn't forget. That night, Aram couldn't sleep. He thought about the man's face, the soft voice, the gentle smile, the way he asked his name, not like a master, but like someone who truly cared. No one had ever done that before. The next morning, something even stranger happened. Hyder came again. This time he was not alone. He brought more gifts. He brought books, toys, a doctor to check the kids. And this time, he didn't ask permission. He walked straight through the gate. Mr. Nadim ran outside, shouting, "You can't come in without permission." Hyder turned slowly and said, "I already gave you many chances. Now I want to see the children." And then he looked at the children gathered near the doorway, tired, scared, thin. "I want to see them." Hyder stood firmly in the middle of the orphanage gate. His eyes slowly scanned the building, the cracked walls, broken windows, and the frightened children peeking through the doorway. "I want to speak with the children," Hyder said. Calmly, Mr. Nadim's fake smile had vanished. "You can't just walk in like this. This is a private institution." Hyder didn't blink. "It's an orphanage. These children are under your care, not your control." Mr. Nadim looked around nervously. A few of his staff members stood behind him, unsure of what to do. They had never seen anyone challenge the caretaker before. "I brought a doctor," Hyder said, nodding to a kind-looking woman standing beside him. "Just a simple health check." One by one, the children were brought out into the main hall. Most of them had sad, pale faces. Some limped, others had old bruises. They didn't speak. They just stared at the ground. The doctor looked at Hyder, with concern after each child. Something wasn't right. Hyder's heart grew heavy with each small face he saw. But when Arham stepped forward, something inside him paused. There he was. The same boy who had watched him from behind the gate. The same child who stayed silent, even when his eyes begged for help. The doctor gently touched Arham's arm. The boy flinched. She looked up at Hyder and whispered, "He has bruises on his back, old and new." Hyder's jaw tightened. He knelt beside Arham again and spoke in a soft voice. "Did someone hurt you, Arham?" The boy looked up at him, fear in his eyes, and quickly shook his head. Mr. Nadim quickly stepped forward. "See?" He said, "No, they're all fine." Hyder stood up. He looked around the room at the other children. "Are all of you fine?" he asked. No one spoke. But then a girl in the back, no older than 9, raised her hand slowly. "We get beaten when we talk," she whispered. "They hit us if we ask for food." Gasps filled the room. One staff member looked down in shame. Hyder turned to Mr. Nadim. "Is this what you call care?" Mr. Nadim stepped back. "She's lying. Kids make up stories." But before he could finish, another boy shouted. He locked Arham in the bathroom for a full day. Then another child said, "He takes our food and sells it." One by one, the children began to speak. Their voices were small, but their words were filled with pain. Real pain that could not be hidden anymore. Mr. Nadim turned red. "They're orphans. Who will believe them?" Hyder pulled out his phone and showed a red blinking light. "I already recorded everything, and I will make sure the right people hear it." Mr. Nadim's face froze. "You can't do that." Hyder's eyes turned cold. "I already did." Later that evening, police arrived at the orphanage. Mr. Nadim was arrested for child abuse and financial fraud. Some of the staff members tried to run but were stopped. Others stayed quiet and gave their statements. The children were gathered in the hall. They sat close to each other, scared and confused. Hyder stood in front of them. "You're safe now," he said softly. "No more beatings, no more fear." Some children looked at him with wide eyes. Others began to cry quietly. Then Arham walked up to Hyder. He pulled at the man's sleeve and whispered, "Are you going to leave us now?" Hyder looked down and gently placed his hand on the boy's head. "No, Arham, I'm not going anywhere." Tears rolled down Arham's cheeks. He couldn't believe it. For the first time in his life, someone had stayed. Someone had protected him. Hyder smiled warmly and said, "You're not just orphans, you're children. You deserve love, safety, and a future." The night was no longer dark. Inside the old orphanage, for the first time, there was a light of hope, and it began with one man who cared, and one silent cry that was finally heard. After Mr. Nadim's arrest, the orphanage became silent. No shouting, no beatings, no fear, but also no plan. The government workers visited, looked at the files, talked to the children, and left. They promised help, but nothing changed quickly. The children sat in the hall, unsure of what would happen next. That evening, Hyder came back. He brought food, warm, fresh food, not the dry rice they were used to. He also brought blankets and new clothes for the children. The kids were surprised. Some were too scared to even take the food. They thought there was a trick. For so long, kindness was always followed by pain. But Arham, he stepped forward. He took one plate of food, looked up at Hyder and said in a small voice, "Thank you." Hyder smiled gently. "You're welcome, Arham." That one small moment gave the other children courage. Slowly they began eating, smiling, whispering to each other for the first time in a long time. That night, Hyder stayed with them. He didn't sleep. He walked through the halls, checked on every child, and watched the broken ceiling above them. Rain leaked through it, This place is no longer safe, he said to himself. The next day, Hyder made a call. In the city, Hyder owned a big house, but it was empty. His wife had died years ago. He had no children, no laughter, only work, silence. But now he had a reason to change. Within 2 days, he hired workers. He cleaned the house, painted the walls, brought in beds, toys, books, and filled the kitchen with food. It was no longer a home for one man. It was ready for children. Meanwhile, at the old orphanage, the children were still waiting. Then one morning, 3 big vans arrived at the gate. "Pack your things," Hyder said, smiling. "You're coming with me." The children looked at each other, confused. "All of us?" "Yes, every one of you." The kids cheered, laughed, and cried at the same time. For the first time in years, they were excited to leave. Aram held tightly to Hyder's hand. "Where are we going?" "To a place with no fear," Hyder replied. "To a real home." The journey to Hyder's home was long, but joyful as They entered the large gates of his house. The children stared with wide eyes. "This is for us," one girl asked. "Yes," Hyder said. Inside, they found beds with soft blankets, shelves full of storybooks, and a garden with colorful flowers. Some children ran to the swing in the yard. Others explored the rooms. Laughter filled the air. Aram stood still in the middle of the hall. Hyder knelt beside him. "Do you like it?" Aram nodded, but his eyes were full of tears. "I never had a home before." "You do now," Hyder said, hugging him. That evening, Hyder gathered the children and sat with them on the floor. They had dinner together. "Just like a family." Afterwards, he said, "From today, this is not an orphanage, this is a home, and I'm not your boss, I'm your guardian, your friend." The children smiled. "But," he added, "this is also a new beginning. Each of you will go to school. You'll play, learn, grow. You are no longer forgotten." Some children cried quietly. One small boy said, "Will we be punished if we make mistakes?" Hyder shook his head. "No, but we'll talk. We'll learn. We'll help each other." It felt like a dream, but it was real. Later that night, Hyder found Aram in the backyard, sitting alone and looking at the stars. "You're not tired?" Hyder asked. Aram shook his head. "I used to look at the sky when I was locked in the bathroom. I used to wonder if someone could see me from up there." Hyder sat beside him. "And now?" "Now. I think someone finally did." Hyder smiled. "Maybe the stars guided me to you." Aram looked at him with wide eyes. "Can I ask something?" "Of course. Why did you help us? You didn't know us. You could have walked away." Hyder thought for a moment, then said, "Because once I was like you, alone, sad, and someone helped me. Now it's my turn." Aram didn't say anything. He just leaned on Hyder's arm, feeling safe. For the first time in his life. Days passed, and Hyder's house was now filled with laughter, noise, and hope. The children started going to school. They wore clean clothes, carried school bags, and even made drawings for Hyder every evening. Hyder felt joy like never before. His house, once silent like a grave, now felt alive. But one day, as Hyder sat in his study looking through old files, his phone rang. It was a number he hadn't seen in many years. He answered. "Is this Mr. Hyder?" the voice asked. "Yes. This is from the Government Child Services. We've received a request from someone, claiming to be related to one of the boys living with you." Hyder's heart skipped a beat. "Who?" "The boy's name is Aram." Hyder stood up slowly. "What relation?" "A man claims to be his real father." Hyder's mind went blank. He looked out the window. Aram was playing in the yard with the other kids, smiling. "Free." The voice continued. "He says he lost Aram during an accident years ago. He's asking for a meeting." Hyder didn't know what to say. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Send me the details." That night, Hyder sat quietly at the dinner table. The children laughed and chatted, but he didn't hear anything clearly. His mind was only thinking about Aram. Could this be true? Was his real father still alive? Should he meet him? Would he lose Aram? After dinner, Aram came to Hyder with a drawing. "Look, I made you. You're wearing a red tie in this one." Hyder looked at the picture. A stick figure with a red tie stood beside a small boy with a wide smile. He smiled softly. "Thank you, Aram." But inside, he felt afraid. 2 days later, Hyder agreed to meet the man claiming to be Aram's father. The meeting was set at a child services office. Hyder arrived early. He waited in a small room. His hands were shaking. Then the door opened. A thin man wearing old clothes and tired eyes stepped in. He looked nervous too. The officer introduced him. "This is Mr. Aslam. He claims Arham is his son." Hyder looked at him carefully. "Why did you leave him?" Aslam lowered his head. "We were in a bus. There was an accident. My wife died. I lost consciousness. When I woke up, Aram was gone. I searched for months, but nothing. I thought he died too." Hyder stayed silent. "I moved from city to city. Then last week I saw Aram's photo in the newspaper. I recognized him immediately. That's when I contacted you." Hyder looked into the man's eyes. He didn't seem like a liar. His face showed pain. Real pain. "Do you want to take him back?" Hyder asked. Aslam looked down. "I live in a small room. I don't have a job. I can't even feed myself. Properly, I don't want to take him away from the good life you gave him. I just want to see him one time. Just to say sorry. Just to hold him." Hyder's heart softened. He nodded. "Okay." That evening, Hyder sat with Aram in the garden. The sun was setting. "Arham," he said gently, "do you remember anything about your father?" Aram looked down. "No, only a blurry face. I used to dream about him sometimes. Why?" "Because someone came today. He says he's your father." Aram looked up, shocked. "Really?" "Yes. He thought you were dead." But he never stopped looking. Aram's eyes filled with tears. "He's alive." "Yes. And he wants to see you. Only if you want to." Aram stayed quiet for a while, then nodded slowly. "I want to meet him." The next day they met at the same office. Aram stood at the door holding Hyder's hand tightly. Then he saw the man sitting inside. The moment their eyes met, Aslam began crying. "Arham, my son." Arham took a step forward. "Is it really you?" the man asked, falling to his knees. Arham looked at him, then slowly walked over and hugged him. "I waited for you," Arham whispered. "I'm so sorry," Aslam cried. "I never wanted to leave you." Hyder watched quietly, his heart full of emotions. After a while, Aslam stood up and looked at Hyder. "Thank you for being his angel," Hyder replied softly. "He saved me too." When they left, Arham asked, "Will he come again, Hyder?" Nodded. "Yes, he loves you. He'll visit." "But I can still stay with you, right?" Arham asked in a worried voice. Hyder smiled and hugged him. "This is your home. You're not going anywhere." After Arham met his real father, things changed slightly. The boy was happier, stronger, and more confident. He studied harder and laughed louder. But there was something else too, something silent. He started noticing things about Hyder. Hyder smiled every day, helped every child, gave love like a father. But sometimes when no one was watching, he sat alone with sad eyes. One night, Arham woke up to drink water. He saw Hyder sitting in the dark living room, staring at an old photo frame. "Uncle Hyder?" Arham whispered. Hyder looked up, surprised. He quickly wiped his eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" "I was thirsty," Arham said. He walked closer. "Why are you sitting alone in the dark?" Hyder gave a weak smile. "Just thinking." Arham looked at the photo in Hyder's hands. It was a woman, smiling, holding a baby. "Who is she?" Arham asked softly. "My wife," Hyder replied. "And my son." Arham's eyes widened. "You had a son?" Hyder nodded, his voice heavy. "Yes, long ago." Arham sat beside him on the sofa. "Where are they now?" Hyder looked away. "They're gone. It happened in a fire. My house caught fire one night when I wasn't home. I lost both of them." Arham stayed silent. "It destroyed me," Hyder continued. "I stopped living, I only worked, I stopped feeling anything. Until I met you." Arham reached out and held his hand. You saved us, he said. Now let us save you. From that day, Arham started doing something special. Every night before sleeping, he left a note outside Hyder's room. A drawing, a kind message, or a joke. Hyder always smiled when he found them. The children noticed too. They began hugging Hyder more, asking about his day, telling him their stories. For the first time in years, Hyder allowed himself to laugh freely, like a father surrounded by his children. One day, Aram and the other kids planned a surprise. They created a small show in the garden. Some kids sang songs, others told funny stories. Aram gave a speech. He stood in front of everyone and said, "We were just numbers in an old orphanage, no names, no dreams. But then a man walked into our lives and gave us more than food and clothes. He gave us love. He gave us a home." Hyder's eyes filled with tears. Aram continued, "He once lost a family, but now he has a new one." All the children shouted together, "We love you, Uncle Hyder." They ran up and hugged him tightly. Hyder couldn't speak. He held them all, feeling a kind of love he thought he had lost forever. Later that night, Hyder and Aram sat on the balcony watching the stars. "You've changed a lot," Hyder said, smiling. "You too," Aram replied. "I used to think I didn't deserve happiness anymore," Hyder said softly. "But you all proved me wrong." Aram looked at the sky. "Do you think your wife and son can see us?" "I hope so," Hyder whispered. "I think they'd be proud." A few days later, something surprising happened. Hyder received a letter from the government. They wanted to turn his house into an official child care home, a safe place for abandoned and abused children, with full support from the state. They had seen what he had done for Aram and the others. But with this opportunity came a challenge. More children would come, some with deep wounds, some with dangerous pasts, some harder to handle. Hyder sat alone, thinking, was he ready? Could he open his heart even more? That night, he called a meeting with the children. He explained, "Everything. We may have more kids joining us," he said. "Some may be difficult, some may be scared, but we'll need to welcome them." The children looked around, unsure at first. Then Arham stood up. "We were once scared too, and someone gave us a chance. Now it's our turn." The other children nodded. One by one, they agreed. "We'll help," a girl said. "We'll be their brothers and sisters," a boy added. Hyder smiled proudly. "Then we'll do this, together." In the following days, Hyder began making changes to the house. More beds, more rooms, more food. Aram helped with everything. He cleaned, carried boxes, painted walls. Hyder watched him. This little boy who once cried silently in a dark room, now laughing and leading others. It was more than healing. It was rebirth. 2 weeks later, the big day arrived. The new children were coming. A bus stopped outside Hyder's home. One by one, the kids stepped out, some with sad eyes, some with scared faces, some not even speaking. There were 10 new children. Some had been rescued from the streets, others from cruel places. Aram stood with the old group, watching silently. Hyder came forward and welcomed each child with a warm smile and soft voice. "You're safe now," he said to every single one. But he could see it, their fear, their broken hearts. That night the house was silent again. The new children didn't talk. They sat in corners, some didn't even eat. A few cried quietly under their blankets. Hyder sat in his room and sighed. The old memories came back. The early days, when Aram had those same silent tears. He looked out the window and saw Arham sitting with a new boy trying to talk to him. And that's when Hyder understood. It was time for the children to help each other now. The next morning, Aram and his friends made a plan. They decided to cook breakfast for the new kids. With Hyder's help, they prepared simple food, placed it on the long table, and called everyone. The new children came slowly, unsure. Aram stood up and spoke in a loud but kind voice. "I know you're scared. I was too when I first came here. I thought no one would love me, but then I met him." He pointed to Hyder. "He gave me a family." One of the older new boys asked, "You're not scared anymore?" Aram smiled. Not when I'm with him. The room went quiet. Then, a little girl whispered, "Can I sit next to you?" Arham nodded, and slowly the walls began to break. In the next few days, things started to change. One new boy, Adil, who hadn't spoken a word since arriving, finally asked for a glass of water. Another girl, Zoya, drew a picture for Hyder and left it at his door. The children began to smile again, little by little. Hyder walked through the house, seeing these small changes. They touched his heart deeply. He realized something important. He was no longer saving them alone. They were saving each other. One night, Aram and Hyder sat under the stars again. "So many children now," Hyder said. "Yeah." Aram smiled. "And so many more coming." "Do you ever miss your father?" Hyder asked softly. Aram thought for a moment. "Yes, but I don't feel empty anymore. Because now, I have two fathers. One gave me life, the other gave me love." Hyder turned his face away, hiding tears. "You've grown a lot, Aram. So have you," the boy said, leaning his head on Hyder's shoulder. Weeks passed. The house became full of life. Laughter returned. Music, stories, games, dreams. Everything that once seemed impossible in an orphan's life now filled every corner of that home. One day, a government officer visited the house. He stayed for hours, watching everything: the food, the rooms, the children's behavior. At the end, he shook Hyder's hand. "You've created something special," the officer said. "This place, it's not an orphanage. It's a family." Hyder smiled proudly. That was always the goal. Later that night, Hyder sat with all the children in the garden. A warm breeze passed through the trees. The sky was clear, full of stars. He looked around at all the faces that were once filled with pain, now shining with peace and hope. He stood up and spoke. "I lost my family once. I lost my reason to live, but God gave me a second chance. Through all of you." The children listened quietly. "Each one of you came here with pain, but you also brought love, strength, and light. You are my children now, and this is your home. Forever." Aram stood and hugged him tightly. One by one, all the children followed. Hyder stood in the center of a giant hug, his heart finally full again. As the night grew quiet, the lights of the house glowed gently from inside, just like in the beginning. But this time, it wasn't strange or scary. It was warm. It was home. It was a place where broken hearts found love again.